Early in my career, I made a bunch of mistakes. I just hired people that were best at the thing I needed in the next 6 months, right? Oh, maybe that's not the right answer. Maybe you have to think longer term and more holistically. So I have a very high bar on candidates. If you ask anyone that's ever worked for me, if you ever read like my recommendations on LinkedIn, my people that have worked for me have managed this. And it's because I believe there's what you do. I have a multitude of dimensions I've honed over the years when I'm hiring a growth marketer versus a brand marketer versus a product marketer, how I think about the skill. But I actually think the more important things to look for when you're hiring, if you really want to give yourself the best shot at the right hire, there's 3 things I look at outside of just what they do and how well they do it, which is actually an easier thing to vet these days, I think. The 3 softer things, I think there's a predisposition I look for. Are they naturally above the line, at the line, or below the line? And sometimes it's called optimism or pessimism. I work in high growth tech. If you're a pessimist, we're going to have a hard time. Like, I assure you, teams are not going to want to work with you. People love pragmatists. Sometimes I love a good curmudgeon, but for the majority of the time, you need someone who's bringing positivity to hard problems, believing they can be solved. Predisposition is an area I vet for.
On the predisposition point, That sounds super interesting to me. How do you tease that out? How do you find that out during an interview process?
I think there's a lot of questions you can ask for this, but I actually think I'm fairly candid in this question, where I say to someone, listen, can you give me an example of a time you sat down with a team and a hard problem was put in front of you? What voice in the room were you? Because people are proud of this. They're either, I'm the person who brings a super rational, pragmatic, is this the right problem we should be on? If it's too hard of a problem, is this the right use of our resources? You can start to vet that they might be a little bit closer to either neutral or pessimist. If they're like, I want to understand all the ways we can solve it, I want to hear everyone else's voice in the room, then we can evaluate what's the right way to tackle it. They are already assuming there's a way to solve it. It's not bad or good. I just think in high growth companies, a predisposition of optimism, or at least above neutral, tends to help. Like I always say, are you going to bring an energy into the room that brings us closer to a solution or further from it? And that's the question that helps you get there.
Such a good question. Okay, so predisposition, what was number 2?
So the second is ego. I think this is probably easier to vet for when you ask someone about what they're most proud of. Because again, you're looking for someone who's humble, but not just humble, someone who genuinely believes that more people together working on something is superior than one person working on something, right? That there's a benefit to multiple voices and multiple contributions. And the question I simply ask there is, what are you most proud of? And you're just looking for language, you're looking for how they describe it. Is it a lot of, I'm most proud of the work I did on X? Is it I'm actually really proud of this campaign that my team did XYZ in? I watched so-and-so shine in that project, or we discovered a whole new way of doing something. So you're looking for their predisposition on how they see the world as part of a team or as an individual. Sometimes you want an individual mindset, but I think for the majority of the time, in again, high growth tech companies, you really want a humble attitude and someone who just deeply believes they have more to learn. So that tends to be the second dimension. And then the third is mindset, right? I'm always betting for growth or fixed mindset. I manage a lot of creative teams, and sometimes they have a fixed mindset, right? There are superior, better ways to do things, and they're not necessarily open to a new way of doing things because they've been taught a certain way. And so you really have to unpick with this one, is it that they believe there's more to learn and they always want to learn it? Or do they believe they've learned something really well and they want to bring it to your company? Like, you want to make sure you don't misrepresent fixed mindset. But those are the 3 things I'm looking for. How are they going to show up? And that's really the thing. Work gets easier if people show up well. And it's contagious, right? If someone shows up and they're like, let's solve this problem, we can do it, you probably can solve the problem. And so those are the things that I try to vet for because they're the gotchas when you make a hire.